Welcome to week 14 of this course on JavaScript and jQuery. So we start out with JavaScript, we move to jQuery, which is a JavaScript library. Now we're going to go back to pure JavaScript, and we're going to explore objects a little bit more, particularly date objects. To show you where the reference can be found, I went to overapi.com, and I'm going to choose, instead of the jQuery reference, the JavaScript reference. I'm just going to get there, and you can see here the date object and this whole bunch of methods, and we're going to explore some of them. First, we're going to see how to create a date object, and then how to retrieve information like the month, the date, and other useful bits of information. So we're going to go to our folder first. Once you unzip the folder, you see that inside there's a file called dateandtime.html. When we look at it with our browser, actually with a code editor, you see that we are linking to a file, a JavaScript file, which is not in the folder yet. So we're going to create that. So I'm going to go to my menu here, create a new file. I'm going to save it right away, and I'm going to call it date. See, it's a text file, remember, date.js, and I'm going to save it in the right folder here for me, week 14, and here we go. Okay, so how do we create a date object? For example, if I want to create today's date, so I want to save that info. So to create a date object, we use the word new and the word date capitalized with open and close parentheses. So this is a method that creates a date object. Now we're going to save it inside a variable, and I'm going to call the variable today. So this is the constructor. Date is a constructor to create a date object, and if you do not put anything inside the parentheses, it will always give you the exact time that is being created. Well, what is that exact time and what is being returned? So I'm going to display that object today, and I'm going to use document write, our old friend document write. I'm going to just display the object called today. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go to my browser. I already have that file open. This is a file dateandtime.html. I opened it before I added date.js, so there's nothing in it. So when I reload, there we go. Now my JavaScript file is outputting the results of what is contained inside the date object that was saved inside the variable called today. So it says that today is Monday, May 5th, 2014. So now that we have a date object, we can start extracting bits of information. Let's say we just wanted to extract the day of the week, or the month, or the date, and so forth. And to do that, we use the methods that were listed in this on this page. For example, let's use getDate to get the date, and we'll use getDay and getFullYear and so forth. So go back to the code here. All right, I'm going to keep on using document write. I'm going to say document write. Today is my object, and then I'm going to apply the method getDay. And if you recall, with document write, everything's going to be on the same line unless we use a line break. So I'm going to start adding a line break. So this is resolved as a string inside the parentheses. So I'm going to add a plus sign and then in quotes a line break. It's kind of awkward to do that, but that's the best we have. So I'm going to copy that, because we'll be adding more, and paste it right here. I'm gonna save that, and let's see what we have here. Okay, so this get day, it gives you the first day, it's actually the day of the week. So the week starts on Sunday, then Monday is the second day, and because in JavaScript usually if you recall for arrays and in general, JavaScript starts counting at 0, so giving you the number 1, meaning it's the second day of the week. So you're not gonna get that Monday word, you're gonna get an index. So if you wanted to display what day of the week it was, you would have to create an array with the days of the week and then use the index to associate the correct name of the week. Now let's see a couple other things. So that's get day, sorry, and let's try get date. They're all very similar. So we did get day. Now I'm going to copy and paste this below. Now we're going to try get date. Save that. We get a date 5. So today is the 5th of May, and it returns the date. Keep on going here. Let's try, there was something I want to get the month. Yes, get month and then get full year. Let's copy and paste that. I'm going to do a couple times, so I'm going to say get month. And right below I'm going to say get full year. Now I think I have to make sure the capitalization has to be correct. So get full year, the Y is capitalized. I'm going to save that. Let's see what we get here. Okay, and it is going to start getting a bit confusing, getting all these numbers, not really remembering what they are. So before we start analyzing this, I'm going to add a little bit of text to my output. So it's a bit, I mean, the year, it's obvious what it is, but these other numbers is starting to get confusing. So let's go back to the code editor, and I'm going to start adding some information here. Okay, so I'm going to say here, day of the week. So these are all strings, so I connect strings, bits of strings with a plus sign, so at the end it's going to be one string. Then the second line, this is day of the month. And then we're gonna say here month, and the obvious one, it's here, but we're just gonna say anyway, year. There we go. That might be a little bit clearer. Okay, so day of the week is 1, meaning it's the second day of the week. Day of the month, or date, that'll be easier, it's the 5th. Month says 4. Once again here you see that although this is the 5th month of the year, JavaScript returns 4 because it starts counting as 0. So the number 4 is actually the 5th number in JavaScript's universe. And we have the year right here. And next thing I want to get is the hours and the minutes, just to keep on going here. So I'm going to copy and paste that. I'm going to copy the entire thing. I'm going to paste it twice. So I'm going to say minutes, sorry, hours and minutes. So it's going to be get hours and get minutes. Save that and reload, and here we go. It's 9 o'clock and it's 13 minutes. Okay, so this is pretty obvious and self-evident. The only two items that you want to watch out for are the day on the month, the month and the day of the week, as I said, because of that index starting at 0. In case you're going to use this information to display the name of the weekday or the name of the month, you have to keep this in mind. The last thing I want to see for this bit of information, see, why aren't you coming up? There we go. It's get time. Let's see if I can find it here. Get time. Get time is a kind of a confusing method. And it says returns the number of milliseconds since midnight, January 1st, 1970. What does that mean? So that is a convention. So programmers got together at some point, decide, okay, we're going to start counting time from that particular day, January 1st, 1970. And just because you can imagine, you see very obviously in a moment, when you're trying to calculate the number of time that's gone by between two different dates, how would you do that? And the way they came up with is, okay, if we count the number of milliseconds they have elapsed since a certain fixed date, then it will make it easy to calculate differences in dates. So we're gonna show what that method returns. So I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna copy this line. And so I'm going to say number of milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. And instead of get minutes, it's going to be get time. See what that looks like. It's going to be a really big number. And in fact, it is. It's a huge number right here. And we'll, as I said, this is going to come very handy when we're going to calculate time differences. Okay, let's go back to the code. I'm going to add one more document right here. And I'm going to use an HR, just a horizontal rule, to create a visual divider when we'll be displaying more information. Now I'm going to add some comments here. So above the first line, I'm going to push that down a little bit. I'm going to say create date object. And then I'm going to separate these bits of code and I'm going to say get date information. Because I want to show you how to set date also. So here, to repeat, we created, if you don't put anything inside the parentheses for the date method, it will always return the date in that particular moment. But we can also put some parameters inside the date object. So let's say if I want to set the date to be, a week from today. So let's enter set date. So I want the day to be a week from today, okay? So to get right now the time, so let's create a week first. How long is a week? A week in milliseconds. So let's create a variable called week. All right, so I have to do a little bit of calculations here. There are milliseconds, milli meaning 1,000, so there's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. Then I'm going to multiply that the number of seconds in 1 minute, which is 60. So this calculation gives me 1 minute. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour, so that's another 60 there for you. There are 24 hours in 1 day. So that whole calculation gives me 1 day in milliseconds, and there are 7 days in 1 week. So this calculation, this sets of multiplication, is going to give me a very large number that will represent 1 week. Okay, so now I'm going to have to add that to the number of milliseconds for today. So if I want to set the date for right now, I can create a variable that says now. And there would be, I'm going to extract the number of milliseconds from today. It doesn't really matter that sometimes gone by. So I'm going to get time. So these two numbers are in the same units. The variable week is in milliseconds units. So I'm going to say week in milliseconds. And I'm going to say here today in milliseconds. Okay, so now if I want to set the date to be 1 week from today, let's say take the case of some website that tells the user that you know, they can download or they can use a certain software. They have 1 week to try that, and after 1 week they either have to buy the product or they won't be able to access the software anymore. So one easy way to do it is using JavaScript for that, and you see how we calculate a week. Now we're going to set the new date. Going to create a new date object. So we're going to use date. And inside the quote, the parenthesis, we're going to say now in number of milliseconds plus 1 week. Let me create a little bit more space here so it's a bit easier to read. So there's different types of parameters that you can put inside the date parenthesis. One of them is the number of milliseconds. So not only, so I want to return this new date has to be 1 week from today, and that's how I do it. And I can actually save that into an object. So I'm going to say 1 week from today. I can call that what I want, but that's what I wanna have. And now if I want to display that, let's see if it's correct. So we're gonna say document, right? So you always want to check your calculations. So 1 week from today. And right away I'm gonna add that line break, so I don't have to worry about that later. So I expect the date to be different. So if today is the 5th, 1 week from today should be 5 plus 7 is 12. So let's see if that's correct. And here it is. 1 week from today is going to be May 12th, still a Monday. So that worked. Okay, and I'm going to copy and paste this below just to keep on having separate chunks of code and visually separating what we've been doing. Okay, now we're going to calculate the time difference between two separate dates. So I'm going to say calculate time difference between two dates after January 1st, 1970. You'll see why I'm saying that. All right, so we're going to calculate the difference between the release of the first Apple computer and today. So I just happened to have looked up the date of the release, which is April 16, 1977. So I'm going to create a new date object. So I'm going to use the word new, and I'm going to use the word date. And inside the parentheses, I can just put the information I have. So I'm going to set that to be, first I have to enter the year, then I have to enter the month, which April, it's the 4th month, so I have to enter 3, remember, and then I enter the date, which is 16. And I'm going to save that inside a variable. I'm going to enter var. I'm going to call that variable Apple release. Okay, so now I create, so that's the first step always, create a date object. Now I have to get that number in milliseconds. And I'm going to calculate how many years have gone by between that date and today. And whenever I need to do calculations like that, I have to do them using milliseconds. So I got to get hold of the milliseconds. All right, and I'm going to calculate the difference between today in milliseconds and the Apple release in milliseconds, and I know because now it's much later than 1977, I need to, today is going to have a larger number of milliseconds, so I'm going to use that number and I'm going to subtract the number of milliseconds that have elapsed for the Apple release. I'm going to store that in a variable called difference or diff. Okay, so I'm going to say now, which I know is today in milliseconds, and actually I can just easier, so it's a little bit more obvious. Get time. Okay, that gives me the number of milliseconds, and I'm going to remove from that, subtract from that the number of milliseconds since, let's see, get time, and I just seen that I made a mistake here for Apple release. So we're using the same units here, very, very important. And let's display what we have here. Checking problems, document write, difference in milliseconds. And I'm going to display that. See if I did everything correctly or not. All right, so the difference in milliseconds between those two dates is this number. Well, I want to know, this is great. I mean, apparently I've made no mistakes, and actually I should have Firebug here open to catch anything I might have done wrong. But this number is not particularly useful for us. So it's useful for calculations, but it's not really useful for us as far as understanding what that means. So to figure out the number of years that have gone by, I had to do one more calculation. So first of all, I had to create a year in milliseconds. All right, so we can kind of copy what we have here. So this meant a whole day. I'm going to put it below here. And I don't want 1 week, I want a year. So I just multiply by the number of days. And typically there are 365 days in a year, unless it's a leap year, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to store this information inside a variable that we're going to call year. Okay. And now we're going to figure out the number of years. We're going to divide the difference by the number of milliseconds in a year. And we're going to store that in a variable called number of years, or n years for short. And we're going to display that. And I'm going to add my line break here. There we go. And I also want to add something before, so number of years elapsed since release of Apple. All right, hopefully I did everything correctly, and let's see what we get here. I forgot to have a line break after that. Let's do that right away. All right, so I'm going to copy this, and here is my document write. Let's try that again. Okay, it says 37 point blah 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 blah. Well, okay, we don't need all this other information, so we're going to do something to round off this number, but it says 37 years gone by. Well, let's do a quick calculation. Okay, if the year was 1977, so it's 23 years to 2000, 27, 37, that seems correct, 2014. Okay, so just to make that number look a little bit nicer, I'm going to round off that number. Here's my calculation for the number of years, and we're going to use one of the math methods to round. I'm going to say math.floor. I'm going to enclose that calculation inside that method, meaning first it's calculate what's inside the parentheses, and I guess Oh yes, it's correct. And then this rounding is going to be applied. The floor rounding, that you have three methods. You have round, which rounds a decimal number to its nearest integer, meaning if it's something like 4 point dot whatever number 0.47, is going to round it down to the lowest nearest integer. If it's something like number 0.99, it's going to round it up to the nearest integer. And then you can force that behavior with sealing, or ceil, C-E-I-L, meaning always round it down to the lowest integer, or sealing to the top to the highest integer, or floor rounded down to the lowest integer. And that's what I chosen. So it will truncate the decimal numbers and only give you what's on the left side of your decimal number. So the number should read 37 now. There we go, and that's what it is. Okay, so that is for, as I said, for 2 dates. They are after January 1st, 1970. But what if you wanted to calculate a difference between a date now and a date a long time ago, certainly before January 1st, 1970? Well, it's actually very easy to do. So pretty similar to what we did, but let me show you. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to change it slightly. So I'm going to say to dates before. Actually, one date is going to be after, one date is going to be before. Okay, so I'm going to create a new date object that is going to take the date of the discovery, or this, actually the Declaration of Independence. That's the one I thought of. New date, that's how I create a date object. So notice here I create an object first. Here I create a date object, another date object. So that's always the first step, create a date object. Okay, what is going to be the date? Well, the Declaration of Independence, it was July 4th, 1776. So I'm going to enter the year first. The month, July is the 7th month, so I have to enter 6th. And the date is the 4th. And I'm going to save that date object into a variable, and I'm going to call it independence. Independence. Hopefully I spell it right. Okay. And got to do the same thing. So I got to calculate the difference. So once again, I'm going to copy this. Actually, I'm going to copy the whole thing here. I'm going to paste it below. So instead of having Apple release, I'm going to be independence. And difference in milliseconds, number of year lapses since the Declaration of Independence. Independence. Okay. But before I show you all that, I wanted to tell you something that once we I want to see what I'm gonna get here for get time. So I'm going to display that as well. So I'm going to say document write independence. I chose a very difficult thing here. Get time, and I'm gonna have to have a line break. All right, that should give me everything, because I want to show you that this calculus. So remember that get time, this method gives you back the number of milliseconds elapsed since January 1st, 1970. Well, but this date is earlier than that. So what I'm gonna get here for get time? Let's check it out. And I made a mistake, but the first thing here, you see it's a negative number. Yeah, independence. I should have really chosen a bad name. This number is a number of milliseconds. If you remove the minus, they have elapsed since from that date to January 1st. So that's the way to see this. So it's really huge number here. Let's take care of line 33. Line 33, independence. I'm gonna just copy and paste that. I don't know why I'm having this problem. Okay, independence, get time. All right, first of all, let's just enter here number of milliseconds from independence to January 1st, 1970. And let's rerun this. Okay, number of milliseconds, still something not quite right. Oh, simply I didn't have, that's why, that's all together. It's so hard to tell what I'm doing just because I did not use the line ruler. So I'm just going to add that. Just bear with me for a second till this is all cleaned up. And that should be it. So I just added a document right with a horizontal rule. So that's a little bit easy to see what we've been doing. All right, here we go. So number of milliseconds from independence to January 1st, 1970. A negative number, a very large negative number. And then the difference in milliseconds from that day, from the Declaration of Independence to today, happens to be positive. So what's going on here? Well, that's the magic of algebra, because we are subtracting that number. So although that happened earlier in time, so let's see, here we go here. We're subtracting that large number, the independence get time in milliseconds, from today, and because two negatives result in a plus, we are actually adding them. And let's see if we actually got the correct number. Yes, 237 years. So we got the correct number of years. So that worked very nicely. So if you would subtract, if you are going to create a difference in time between two dates before January 1st, 1970, you're going to have to do some thinking and see how to make that work correctly. But if the difference is between a date before January 1st, 1970 and a date after that, this seems to work just as well, as long as you remember to always consider in time what came later and start with that and subtracting the time that came before. And that is it for the date object. And for the final, I asked you to creatively add a little calculation involving time using this information. So let me show you what I came up with, which is very basic. It's just a little bit of code that always gives you today's date, and it tells you how many days are left until Christmas, which happens to be my favorite holiday, at least for this project. So I like to see something similar to that, you know, a statement tells me what is the date today and how many days are left until your favorite day of the year. And you can put that wherever you want to in your final, either in the header or the footer or inside the main part of your page. Best of luck with the final. If you have any questions, I'm available by email, and that's it for this semester.